Okay, welcome, good morning everybody, and thank you for connecting in to this latest webinar. Today we're going to look at the high velocity IT module, one of the advanced ITIL4 modules, and I'm really just going to give you an insight into what high velocity IT is all about, and particularly what's covered on this particular module, and indeed covered in this particular core module. I know some of you, looking at the names, some familiar names are connected on, so welcome back to you guys. I'm sure that we've also got some new people on this session as well, so you're all very much welcome. Good to see that you're showing an interest in this. So my name's Adam Sawle. I'm the Director of Professional Services at Sysop, and it's my job to really enthuse the benefits of best practice theory, I guess, and these ITIL courses really sort of help underpin and support those things. Okay, for those of you who don't know Sysop are, we're an IT service management specialist or IT best practice specialist. We were actually one of the first ITIL training providers back in the early 90s, doing this an awful long time. And we put the reason for our longevity down to the fact that we always try and have a pragmatic approach to the delivery of our products and services. We understand that investment in consultancy services or training must lead towards organisational benefits. Ultimately, it's the company that's paying the bills, and therefore we want to make sure that value from our services is realised. So by having that focus on organisational benefit, we've sort of recognised that not only through the services that we deliver, but through the training deliveries, we want to try and relate this best practice theory to the real world. And the good news is that by having that approach, not only does it lead to a more practical delivery, but also we're recognising that we're getting high examination success rate across our examination-based training courses, proving the fact that we're definitely taking things in the right direction. We're a family business. Some of you may or may not know that. Janice will have sent you all out your invitations to this session. She's a head of operations. And partly the main reason behind our exceptional customer service, but we try and embrace a family approach in everything that we do, and hopefully you'll get a bit of a flavour for that today. In terms of myself, as I've already introduced who I am, just to say that I am Sysop's ITIL4 product lead. I've been busy developing the ITIL4 modules all the way from foundation through to all of the advanced modules, finishing with the last one, which we released a few months ago now, was the digital and IT strategy course. I've been in IT for a long time. When my dad gave me a job out of university as a COBOL programmer initially, but had various roles from programming, developing, through to implementation of storage solutions, into a sort of sales capacity, and now I sort of find myself with a very general role, but providing our consultancy services and delivery of our training offerings is where I see myself today. I'm particularly passionate about IT service management, as is Sysop collectively, and hopefully you're going to get a bit of flavour of that today. So we've only got you for an hour. I always try and squeeze a lot into this hour. Hopefully I won't overrun. Unfortunately, I have done on the previous webinars in this series, but only just. But I see that as just content in the sessions that are providing you with some good value. So the agenda today, we're going to take a very brief look at the ITIL4 framework and the qualification scheme to sort of set the scene for where these training modules come from. We'll have a look at what high velocity IT is, what that's all about. We'll go very briefly look at the potential target audience for this particular module, so you can consider whether this is right for you or your colleagues within your organisations. And then we'll get into the deeper content of high velocity IT, where we're going to look at characteristics, objectives, behaviours, techniques and practices of high velocity IT, and all the things which the course is structured around, and the associated publication as well. We'll then take a look at what next. Where do we go from here? What are the training options and those types of things? And then I'll finish with a Q&A session for you to ask any questions as we go. I will say that obviously all you guys are muted. You can only hear me. The chat facility is there for you to ask any questions that you may have. Sometimes I pick one or two of them up as I go, but what I certainly do at the end of the session is go back and make sure that we've covered all of your questions. So feel free to post them into the chat facility, and we'll certainly get around to asking those questions. I should say that the meeting, this webinar is being recorded, and I will send you all an email after this event, including the link to the recording itself, as well as copies of the slides and some other information that we're going to cover as we go through this particular session. Okay, so on to the main content then. So first of all, just to start off with what is ITIL. I know some of you have been on some of these webinars already, so you will sort of see these slides. But just to very briefly sort of set the scene with this, then ITIL it's all about documented best practice for service management. I think the main reason why we're sort of talking about this is that it still does that, it still fulfills that purpose. It still looks at IT service management as it always has done as we've moved into ITIL4. The major updates behind the switch from version 3 to 4 was to sort of recognise that the IT world is changing significantly. Business demand is ever increasing. The pressures on IT service management for things to be delivered faster, better, cheaper are more obvious than they've ever been. So ITIL4 was ITIL was updated to ITIL4 to really provide organisations with comprehensive guidance for the management of IT-enabled service in the digital economy, recognising that things have evolved and service management from using the traditional approaches has perhaps been left behind. And the updates to ITIL4 off the back of that are most evident in this particular module that we're covering today, as we look at the high velocity IT approach, how we look at agile ways of working from the service management space. So you'll get a good flavour of the need for the updates as we sort of go through these things. Just to say that ITIL4 was updated to reflect that we're in the fourth industrial revolution. So if you don't know, that's what the 4 actually stands for. It does happen to also be the fourth major update iteration of the ITIL framework, but it's really to reflect that we're in the fourth industrial revolution here. And that this fourth industrial revolution is really just there to reflect that technology is significantly changing the way that we live our lives at the moment, and changing the way that we do things. And there's just a few examples there up on the slide of artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, all of these things. Huge technological advancements which are going to really change the way that we live our lives. And ITIL4 provides us with comprehensive guidance. Historically, the L in ITIL stands for library. That's because the best practice guidance is documented in a series of publications. And there are 6 books in the ITIL4 framework in terms of the core guidance. We've got a book covering the foundation content, which is which looks at all of ITIL from that sort of the level of that foundation level of knowledge that covers all of the concepts like the service value system, the service value chain, all of these new things that have been introduced, but more just as an introductory point of view. Whereas the other more advanced modules build upon that best practice framework and provide us with additional guidance in specific areas. So we have create, deliver and support, drive stakeholder value, high velocity IT, direct, plan and improve, and digital and IT strategy. So it's true that we have 6 core publications, but with these publications, there has been a move away from the traditional approach, which we've seen in previous versions of ITIL, where the various processes, as was, and we're talking about them being practices in ITIL4, have actually been stripped out of the main core content. And that's largely down to the fact that these practices are relevant at varying different stages across the framework. So actually, if they were individually covered in only one of the publications, then it wouldn't provide a true representation of the relevance of that particular practice. So these practices are referenced in the core publications, but the detail of these practices is actually available as an online resource through the My Axelos subscription service. There's a My ITIL section to that, where there are 34 practice guides. So just a few examples there for you: service desk, incident management, problem management being examples of those practice guides. And you can log on and access those if you are subscribed to their service. I believe it's £50 per year. But if you take an ITIL exam, then this gives you 12 months access for free. So those are resources that are available for you for your ongoing training and development as you go through this this training program. So as you might expect, there is a supporting ITIL4 certification scheme, and actually it's sort of straightforward in that the modules, the publications that I've just talked about directly map onto the modules within the certification scheme. So you can see that at the bottom here, we've got the ITIL Foundation, which is and always has been the prerequisite to go on to other training courses. So the foundation is still very much similar to the format that I'm sure you guys have participated in the past. 3-day training course, 40 question exam at the end of it, multiple choice. Once you've ticked that particular qualification off, then you can go on and have a look at these more advanced modules. So just to explain this, because it does cause a little bit of confusion, these blue boxes at the top here, the ITIL Managing Professional, the ITIL Strategic Leader, these aren't training courses. These are actually qualifications that you're working towards. So once you've achieved ITIL Foundation, if you then go on and have a look at these 4 modules of create, deliver and support, drive stakeholder value, high velocity IT and direct plan and improve, and if you successfully pass all of those, then you would earn the qualification ITIL Managing Professional. If you went down the other routes where you took ITIL Foundation and then just did the direct plan and improve and digital and IT strategy, then you would become an ITIL Strategic Leader. And really, this Strategic Leader qualification, largely down to the digital and IT strategy module, is aimed at C-sector individuals, so chief executive officers, chief technology officers, or people aspiring to get into those sort of roles. But of course, we would expect those ITIL service management consultants or contractors who want to be specialists in this area to look and go on and achieve both of these qualifications potentially. You can see that this blue module, Direct Plan and Improve, appears down both routes, so it contributes to both. So if you are a managing professional, having achieved these 4 modules, then you already have the Direct Plan and Improve, so you only need to take the Digital and IT Strategy module to complete the set of those 2 qualifications. Once you do have those 2 qualifications, just to clarify something, some people think that means that you become an ITIL Master, and that's not quite true. If you have those 2 qualifications, then you meet the prerequisites to consider moving on to achieve an ITIL Master certification, which details are not yet released, but we're expecting this to be a sort of a dissertation type exercise where you demonstrate practical experience of practical implementation of ITIL and service management generally. So ITIL Master exists, and I don't think I've not mentioned yet, so some of you will perhaps fall into this camp. If you have an ITIL version 3 expert qualification, or if you have 17 credits or more from the ITIL version 3 qualification scheme, 17 credits kind of being one step away from ITIL version 3 expert, as in some of you may have completed all of the life cycle modules or all of the capability modules, but not the managing across the life cycle, then that would leave you with 17 credits. So if you have 17 credits or more, then you can consider the Managing Professional Transition, which is kind of the conversion bridging course, a 5-day course which actually covers all of foundation, create, deliver and support, drive stakeholder value, high velocity IT and direct plan and improve. Across those 5 days, you take the exam, and if you pass it, then you become an ITIL Managing Professional. And if you then wanted to progress, then you just need the ITIL Digital and IT Strategy qualification to become an ITIL Strategic Leader. This slide often leads to questions from people about specific things. So if any of you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and or when I send you my follow-up email with all the information from the session, if you want to reply and ask me any specific questions about yourself or your colleagues and where you stand with your credits and all of those things, I will more than gladly help you with those questions. In terms of the exam format for these advanced exams, this is true for everything apart from digital and IT strategy, which is slightly different, but we're not talking about that today, so we don't need to worry about it. So from a high velocity IT point of view, there are no case studies. It's a standard 4-option multiple choice exam, more aligned to ITIL Foundation than to what you may have experienced previously with ITIL version 3 intermediate modules. So there are no complex question types. There are no graded answers. By that we mean, obviously in version 3 you had 4 answers. One was 5, one contributes towards 5 points, 1 3 points, 1 1 point, and 1 0 points. But we don't have that. We have one answer, which is the best answer, and the other 3 are incorrect. 40 questions per paper. You've got 90 minutes to complete it, and you're looking to get a pass mark of 28 out of 40, which is 70%. It's a closed book exam, which has always been the case with these things. I often get asked, how does it compare to ITIL version 3 exams? Well, obviously, there's the change in format. You know, it's more straightforward in terms of the format and style of the questions. Actually, I'd also argue that it is slightly easier as well. It's just on the right here, we're talking about Bloom's levels. Bloom's levels is the competency level, or rather the difficulty of the exam question. More to the point is how much of an understanding you need to have in a certain area to be able to successfully pass the exam. So within the ITIL4 modules, Managing Professional modules anyway, some questions are at Bloom's level 2, where you need to explain, describe and understand the concept. And some are at level 3, where you can apply those ideas. Now, there's no questions at higher Bloom's level, but the ITIL version 3 modules, advanced modules, did have some questions which were based around Bloom's level 4. So that again just kind of demonstrates to you that it's just sort of subtly easier in terms of the difficulty of the level of knowledge that you need to have in order to achieve these qualifications. You're not required to have experience of working in IT service management, although I'm sure that does help, but there is no specific requirement in that area. Okay, so that's sort of setting the scene, the ITIL qualification scheme, ITIL itself. Let's have a look at the high velocity IT module then, and the real core content that I'm sure you guys were specifically interested in today. So high velocity IT, so Axelos are defining this as the future of IT and digital services. I would say that this area, when I talk about IT service management having traditional approaches to service management, pressure being applied from businesses who are looking for things faster, better, cheaper. I think it really is the high velocity IT aspects which are really those things which are enabling IT to be more agile focused, more aligned to driving things forward from the business. So there's lots of things that we're going to look at within the high velocity IT, of course. In fact, by the end of this session, you'll sort of realise that we actually cover an awful lot on this particular course. And I think it probably is fair to say that we don't go into anything in a great level of detail. We're really just kind of suggesting techniques and approaches that can be used in certain areas to help us take a more of a high velocity IT approach. And really, there's these three sort of questions here, and this is just sort of a sample of the types of question that this module or this publication are trying to, these questions that they're trying to answer. What is high velocity IT, and what kind of organisations benefit from it? Kind of recognising that these approaches might not be relevant for every IT organisation out there. Your traditional support organisation that doesn't have much of a development arm may not see the relevance in much of the things that we're going to talk through today. But more and more, we're sort of seeing that that software development is sort of tripping into to infrastructure as we look at virtualization and those types of things, which have been around for quite a while now. But it is changing the way that we do things. So, so it answers what types of organisations this is relevant for, what kind of culture or belief system supports and enables high velocity IT work. Because a lot of what we're talking about here is cultural, and it's related to behaviours. So you'll get a flavour for that as we go into the detail of these sections, and which high velocity IT techniques can be used to help an organisation achieve its objectives. And we talk about a lot of objectives a lot of techniques in different categories, and I'll give you a flavour of those when we get to that section. This diagram at the top right, we're sort of looking at high velocity IT, and we're kind of saying that we're taking approaches that are covered in all of the other publications: Foundation, Create, Deliver and Support, Drive Stakeholder Value, Direct Plan and Improve, Digital and IT Strategy. And we're looking at some of those concepts, and we're looking to demonstrate what they look like in a high velocity IT world. So there's definitely strong interfaces with those things. And it's sort of a key point to this is clever distinction that velocity is speed in a direction. So although we're talking about the business wanting things faster, better, cheaper, and speed being a key requirement of that, we're also recognizing that that we need to be moving things in the right direction. So it's not just speed. We are looking at velocity as being a better indicator of what we're trying to achieve here. But actually, and this is very clear, that we're also referencing the fact that we also need to embed quality into those aspects as well. And that really just gives you a bit of a summary of what we mean by high velocity IT. In terms of the specific learning objectives of the high velocity IT module, then there's these 4 bullet points that the course is built around, really. So if you attend the course, then you will, after that, you will successfully be able to understand concepts regarding high velocity nature of the digital enterprise, the demand it places on IT. So there we're sort of looking at introducing concepts like digital transformation and what high velocity IT and what a digital organization is, digital products and all of those things would fit into that area. Understand the digital products life cycle in terms of the ITIL operating model. So this is sort of how ITIL4, things like the service value system, the service value chain, how they map onto the digital product life cycle. Understand the importance of the ITIL guiding principles and other fundamental concepts for delivering high velocity IT. And know how to contribute to achieving value with digital products. So huge emphasis on the modern digital world, and how the high velocity IT concepts help with all of those things. In terms of the potential target audience for this particular module, well, I think it's definitely fair to say that previous versions of ITIL didn't really trouble the software developers, the sort of development side of things. By that, I always sort of felt as though when people from software development came onto ITIL training courses, they always felt as if they were sent onto the sessions rather than they specifically wanted to be there. There wasn't much in it for them. It always felt more operations led, more service management led. Whereas now, certainly when you look at the concepts that we're covering within this, we're looking at that much broader spectrum of different aspects, different parts of the organisation that really should be interested in this stuff. So you've got your developers, you've got your cloud architects, test engineers, Scrum masters. All of these things should be interested in this particular module. But anybody specifically who's working in or migrating to delivery of digital products and services, highly automated environments, looking at lean, agile, or DevOps ways of thinking, then this particular course and this particular module will be of real interest. So that's really where it's aimed at. I think it is also fair to say that anybody who's sort of looking at traditional ways of working from an IT service management point of view and how that can be adapted to fit more in line with the changing world, because this stuff is increasing in popularity out there, and I'm sure some of you on this session could testify for that. Then it really does sort of demonstrate ways that you can move your IT organisation forward to perhaps speed the way we do things up in order to better meet the needs of the business overall. And high velocity IT introduces some key characteristics. Well, first of all, the definition of high velocity IT, so that we can be a bit clear on this: the application of digital technology for significant business enablement, where time to market, time to customer, time to change, and speed in general are crucial. So we're looking at digital technologies, how we can apply them to meet the needs of the business overall. But the key emphasis here is that we're sort of looking at how we can reduce time to market, reduce time to customer, reduce time to change, and bring things forward as quickly as we can. But also making sure that fast doesn't mean incomplete. You know, we want to make sure that that we are meeting the needs of customers. We want to try and do it in a faster way. So we've got these characteristics that sort of help us with this. The central point to here is value co-creation, where we're recognizing that everything that we do, we want to be service providers, want to be working with service consumers to co-create value. Ultimately, that's what that relationship is all about. But we've got these other 4 areas from a high velocity IT point of view that help us achieve that. So we want things to be lean. We want to follow lean concepts where we can try and achieve something with the minimum number of steps, if you like, the fastest way to get there that we can, and potentially look at identifying and removing waste from the way that we do things, so that everything that we do has a very clear focus on value co-creation. So lean aspects contribute towards this. Agile does. I mean, agile ways of working, agile service management is another, was probably the first name for this particular module, I would suggest, because that's what people were talking about. What does it mean from a service management perspective to be agile? Now, generally, agile means that we're looking to introduce an iterative approach with feedback loops embedded, so that we can actually provide something of value for our customers and get their opinion on whether we're moving things in the right direction early, rather than taking a long time to achieve something. So if we can work in an agile way, then that's going to ultimately help keep us working in a high velocity IT point of view. Continuous, you know, we want to be looking at a more of a continuous delivery approach. And whenever I sort of see this, I think of Amazon, who I'm sure it's improved recently, but when they first moved across to Amazon, to the web services, AWS, then they recognized that they were sort of deploying every 11.7 seconds. I'm sure they're deploying more frequently than that now. And that really just kind of gives you an example of this continuous delivery approach, where we're not just waiting for the weekly CAB meeting to take place, where we can actually start to agree and roll things out. We're looking to continually roll things out across the organization to keep up with business demand and continually deliver value for them. But whilst doing all of these things, we also need to recognize that we still need to have a resilient infrastructure. We used to sort of refer to as ITIL as something that put the monkeys back in the cages back when it was first came along, and the IT guys all of a sudden had some controls that they had to follow to make sure that they couldn't just do what they wanted. And I think some people's interpretation of sort of lean and agile and continuous is that we sort of we let those monkeys out of the cages. Well, perhaps we do, but we're going to do it in a controlled way where we do still have resilience. So that case plays a key part in value co-creation as well. So those are the characteristics of high velocity IT, and those they do kind of map onto the high velocity IT objectives. So I'm just going to walk you through these, and then we're going to have a look at each of them, just to cover off the techniques and practices that we cover on this particular module in relation to each of them. So we've got 5 IT objectives: valuable investments, fast development, resilient operations, value co-creation, and assured performance. So with valuable investments, we're looking at how we innovate and how we use IT to meet the needs of the business overall and keep it in line with business strategy. So we want valuable investments, we want fast development, and kind of talk briefly about this: lean approaches, agile approaches. We're looking at quick realization and delivery of IT services and IT related products, getting things out to the business and customers as quickly as we can. But as we mentioned, we've got resilient operations, highly resilient IT services and IT related products. There's areas that we need to be thinking about to make sure that we are protected, we have got controls in place and things aren't likely to go wrong. Co-created value, so we're looking at effective interaction between service provider and service consumers. So effectively what we're saying is got to have an emphasis on value co-creation with the relationships that we have with across from us as an IT service provider across to our IT service consumers, and make sure that we've got good interactions and we're maximising our working relationship. Assured conformance, we're going to make sure that we're adhering to governance, risk and compliance, because those things are still there. You know, we've still got to recognise that that we need to do things a certain way. And with this high velocity way of working, then we need to make sure that we're not putting our organisation at risk from a compliance point of view in those aspects. So all of these things fit within the high velocity IT objectives. But going into them in a bit more detail, so if we're looking for valuable investments, then this particular publication and module covers techniques and practices that support, well, all of these objectives really. But from a valuable investments point of view, we have things like prioritization techniques. So just to give you an example, we talk about sort of the cost of delay. If we're looking at how we're going to prioritize our workloads overall, we need to understand not just in terms of sort of monetary value what the cost of delay is, but things like if we're going to be delayed in releasing something, then what benefits are we going to be missing out on? And those types of techniques kind of help us prioritize across the piece. You know, quite often we sort of talk about, for example, incidents taking more of a priority over anything else because there's a reactive thing where we need to resolve it quickly. Well, actually, when we're looking at value across the piece of the organisation, we want to be prioritising those things that are going to be delivering greater value for our customers, and that's really what we want to be focused on. So prioritisation techniques is something key that we pick out from there. Minimal viable products and services, that kind of follows an agile way of working, that let's deliver something quickly which is of value. It's a minimal viable product or service, the first iteration, and then we can build from there, and that's really what that's all about. Product or service ownership, so this is following ever increasing ways of working that we've seen being introduced from those of you that sort of follow Scrum ways of working, where we have product owners and service owners, and someone takes ownership across the whole life cycle of a particular product. We have A/B testing covered in this particular area, which is all about if we're wanting to introduce some new features, then we can run some tests where we only make those features available to a subset of our customer base, and therefore we can sort of have a look at how the feedback that we're getting from one set of customers who have it and one set of users who haven't and one set of users who have, and we can sort of get a feel from them about how well we're helping them meet their requirements. So A/B testing is something that we covered as a technique in this particular section as well. We have a couple of ITIL practices: portfolio management and relationship management, two areas that truly help us look at our portfolio of services that we have, products and services that we're offering customers. How well are these contributing to strategic direction? Relationship management, and we're going to manage those relationships and make sure that we've got those things plugged in. So techniques, practices that help us with the valuable investments piece. Fast development, again, techniques and practices specific to this. Infrastructure as code and loosely coupled information system architecture. very technical concepts of looking at things like virtualization, looking at microservices and containerization. But basically, we're looking at the way that we can deploy code quickly, which has really significantly changed the way that we do things in IT. As I'm sure you can all agree, that it's sped up the way that we can release things. We can do testing faster because we've got the ability now to sort of fire up infrastructure as code as we need to. We look at reviews, sort of retrospectives and blameless post-mortems and things like that we cover within the review section. Continual business analysis. So, if we want to make sure that we're in a position where we can quickly respond to changing requirements, then we need to have this ongoing business analysis to make sure that we're always constantly moving things in the right direction. Continuous integration, continuous delivery. I mentioned Amazon earlier, and the number of times that how often they're deploying. That's because they're following an approach of continuous integration and continuous delivery, where they've automated sort of the build, test, and deployment, so that actually they can do these things in a quicker way. Continuous testing, so looking at testing not just being at the sort of the end of the production life cycle, testing at every single step along that particular life cycle is a more productive way of doing things. And Kanban techniques, the most obvious one that springs to mind is the sort of post-it note scenario, which I'm sure some of you may follow these practices, where you can sort of support your daily stand-up meetings by having a Kanban board with post-it notes which indicate the work that needs to be done, what you're currently working on, and what has been achieved. Those types of things all come out through the Kanban section. In terms of vital practices that we cover here, then we're looking at architecture management, business analysis, deployment management, service validation and testing, and software development and management. And as I said earlier, these are all areas that sort of the traditional IT service management and ITIL training didn't really cover off. And as you can see from the software development side of things, DevOps side of things, then all of this stuff is of great relevance. Okay, moving on to resilient operations. So we cover various techniques here. Technical debt, we're sort of looking at the cost of applying workarounds, really. And every time we apply a workaround, there's a potential cost implication compared to if we'd have put in place a permanent fix earlier. So we need to look at sort of technical debt. Chaos engineering, sort of an example of that is Netflix's Chaos Monkey. I don't know if you've heard of that, but effectively it's not just Netflix, but they're one of a number of organisations that have sort of contribute towards methods of causing disruption, basically testing things, causing issues, but actually it helps us to quickly identify how we can be resilient against the things that are likely to happen. Or maybe not likely to happen, but where they could impact us massively if they do. So it's a way of building up resilience across our systems. Definition of done, where we're looking at an agreed checklist with our customers that we can make sure that we've ticked every box before we roll something out. Good old version control is still in there. We still have a need to make sure that we're controlling versions, and we all know how the management of software is, and which is the latest and all those aspects. AI ops and chat ops, we're looking at machine learning and big data and interfaces with sort of chat bots and all of these things to help sort of computers contribute towards ongoing communication. It's almost like having an extra resource within the organization, somebody who's contributing towards discussions, but it happens to be a robot which is looking at the data that we have available to make those contributions. And site reliability engineering, where we're looking at software engineering and looking at some of those aspects that influence infrastructure and service operations generally. And we have some vital practices in this area. I think these sort of good traditional stuff in here that are still relevant: availability management, capacity and performance, monitoring an event, problem, service continuity, and infrastructure and platform management we cover as part of the resilient operations piece. Value co-creation. So the only technique we talk about here is service experience, and really this is looking at taking things beyond the traditional service level agreement approach, where we're looking at the experience overall as being something of greater value than just meeting outcomes through our services. So what's the overall experience? So customer experience, customer journey would form into this particular area. And we look at ITIL practices of relationship management, service design, and service desk as a means to help us ensure that we've got value co-creation with between the service provider and the service consumer. And I will just point out relationship management is here. I also mentioned it as part of valuable investment, so it does contribute to those two areas. Assured conformance. So last one. So we've got techniques to help us with conformance. The DevOps Audit Defense Toolkit is there to sort of help with the tensions that exist between IT and audit generally. Again, just because we're doing things in a fast way, we're taking lean approaches perhaps, we still need to make sure that we are conforming to compliance regulations and things. So there's such thing as the DevOps Audit Defense Toolkit, which gives us some sort of guidance to sort of help us with that. We have DevSecOps, where we're sort of looking at integrating information security into our daily routines. So that's why it kind of sits in within Dev and Ops, but really it's just bringing in, it's having that more of an integrated approach. And then we have a concept of peer review. Guys, can you? Has the sound gone dodgy for you guys? I can hear lots of rustling on my device. Can somebody just indicate in the chat if it's okay for you? Are you experiencing the same thing? Okay. Just my headphones there. It's very distracting, but I'm sure I can carry on. It's not a problem. Yeah. So peer review, that helps us with conformance. So we're talking here about if somebody's working on a development, then they can sort of look at doing testing, perhaps look at getting authorization from a colleague to do similar testing. We can sort of look at the same level and sign things off faster rather than waiting for formal approval. So peer review is something which contributes towards assured conformance as well. So on to the ITIL practices. So we look at, as you might expect, for conformance, information security management, and risk management form strong basis for that. So we cover those particular sections within that. So as you can see from that whole set there, I'll just show you a visual. There's a lot that we cover on this particular module from techniques and practices point of view that contribute to these areas. And across a 3-day course, I think it's fair to say that you can only really introduce these concepts generally, but there's a lot of value there that really should arouse your interest in this particular module itself. And then we also have these 5 key behaviours of high velocity IT. I'm not going to spend much time on this really. I mean, these are sort of general guidelines: accept ambiguity and uncertainty. We're sort of recognising that we don't always need to have the answers. We can sort of encourage experimentation and learning and those types of things. So that's and really that we're trying to work towards people accepting that and finding ways of coping with that. Trust and be trusted. You know, building up trust with our colleagues within the organisation. That's quite key for us. Continually raising the bar is behaviour that we want to look for, looking for opportunities to continually improve rather than just standing on our laurels. Help get customers' jobs done, having a focus on what the customers are trying to achieve and making sure that we're helping them meet those requirements, and having a commitment to continual learning. So recognising that we can always do things better. Let's try and identify ways that we can learn and build from that. So these behaviours, as I say, I'm not going into them in too much detail, just to say they're there to reflect an organisational's needs. We're looking at the organisation collectively, but individual practitioners, just looking at their aspirations as well. And these are just behaviours that we want to sort of see instilled into our organisations. And just to give you a very quick flavour of the concepts that are covered here to help us with this, we look at things like ethics. We want people to have the right morals and do things the right way from an organisation perspective and individually. Safety culture. We want people to feel that it's okay for them to fail, that there's no retribution. We want to make sure that so that they can contribute without fear of that. We want to introduce a lean culture of experimentation and learning. We have this Toyota Qatar, which looks at improvement, but looks at scientific approaches to help us with our improvement activity. The characteristics of high velocity IT: lean, agile, resilient, and continuous. If we can look to embed them as a culture into our organisation, that would be good. Service dominant logic, where we're focused on value co-creation, really, and what is it the service is, what value is this service contributing, and how can we make sure that we're working in that way. Design thinking is all about placing the customer and or the user at the center of our design decisions, so we can look at it from their point of view and design around their particular requirements. Complexity thinking, so using things like I think it's pronounced Kunafin or Signfin, if you've heard of that, but approaches if we've got some complex situations that we need to work through, then we've got some techniques here to help us with that, and let's embrace the complexity rather than shy away from it. So all of these concepts in this box here, they help us instill these 5 key behaviours for high velocity IT, and they're all covered on this particular module as well. Okay, so that's the high velocity IT module. So in terms of what next, well, just to post it in there early. Actually, I haven't got that. That's the wrong thing. Just bear with me. I'll stick it in there in a second. We've got the customer satisfaction survey for you to fill in for us, if that's okay. I'll make sure I get that posted to you in a second. In fact, I think I have it just here. Set things up and think on my feet. There we go. If you can take a short amount of time just to fill that in for us, to provide us with some feedback on today's session, that would be great. We always say that feedback is a gift, and I'll come back to this point in a second, but that's just to give you a bit of a heads up on that. So what next? Well, those of you who haven't looked at ITIL4 yet and have done some ITIL version 3, then you should know that the discontinuation of ITIL version 3 has now been announced. So as of the 1st of June 2021, then the ITIL version 3 Foundation course will be withdrawn, the qualification will be withdrawn, so you can no longer take that. To be honest, the demand in this area has pretty much dried up anyway. I think people are now starting to look at the ITIL4 Foundation. The ITIL version 3 Intermediate will be discontinued at the end of this year. So those of you who are looking to top up your qualifications from a version 3 perspective to enable you to do the conversion bridging course, the Managing Professional Transition module, then you need to be aware of that. And same thing, if you are looking to do that, then the Managing Professional Transition won't be around forever. It's going to be discontinued as of the 1st of July 2022. So you've got over a year to sort of complete this process of transitioning across from version 3 to 4. But after that point, then obviously you're starting on the full certification scheme that I covered earlier. In terms of training options, so looking at all of the ITIL4 modules, then we have physical classroom available. It's going to be so nice. Hopefully at some point very soon, we're going to be able to return to the physical classroom and see faces face to face rather than across computer screens, which I'm sure we're all itching for some of that. Anyway, so all of our courses we will be providing in the physical classroom. Our main training centre is in North Manchester. So you can look out for dates for that. But right now, our focus has been on virtual training. So by virtual, we mean trainer-led, using Microsoft Teams or Zoom, where we're sort of committed to a 3-day training course for much of these things. And people connect in, and we provide the full course in real time, as opposed to the e-learning, which is pre-recorded content, which we give you a much longer amount of length of time. You get 90 days to complete most of these courses, and the idea is that you study them in your own time, as and when you can, and then you take, for both of these options, virtual and e-learning, you take online exams, which is all web proctored, so you need a webcam to do that. But it's a fairly straightforward process, and has been working quite well. And just to say that, but we always have the option of private events. Got public dates here for you. For those of you who have a requirement of this training for a number of people, well, the break-even point whether to host a private event is about 4 or 5 people. So if you have 12 people that require the training, assuming they can all attend at the same time, then a private event is definitely something that you want to be considering, and come to us about that. So just picked up on a question there. Somebody's asking me about, are we planning to run any managing professional transition courses in the future? Yeah, it's not on my slide. We have got one scheduled week commencing the 7th of June, which is intended to be in the classroom. It's actually on special offer at the moment as well. So I will include details of these training options, and just moving on to my next slide, all of the special offers that we have currently. I'll include details of that in the email that I send across to you. So we've got an outing of the Managing Professional Transition in June. Our schedule mostly just goes up to the end of June at the moment, but very soon we will be releasing more dates, and we're kind of just looking at when we can physically return to the classroom. So it's like all of us, we're sort of monitoring the COVID situation and working out when that's best going to be. In terms of some special offers right now that you can take advantage of, well, if you are looking at ITIL4 Foundation training, then whether it's e-learning, public training, virtual training, then we have discounts available for you. If you're looking at arranging a team for your own people, then we can do a private virtual training course for you. And at the moment, before the end of April, we're providing a 20% discount off those things. So if it is something that you're planning, then contact me and we can make sure that we get you a quote for those things. The ITIL4 advanced modules, and by advanced I mean these 5 courses in the bottom right hand corner: create, deliver and support, drive stakeholder value, high velocity IT, direct plan and improvement, digital and IT strategy. Then we've got a 30% discount from all upcoming virtual course outings. So obviously we providing these webinars to generate interest in these things, to really introduce the benefits of them. So if you do think that these are of interest, then you can look to take advantage of that discount if you book before the end of April. And just to say that we have bundles, managing professional bundles of courses. And by that we mean, obviously, some people might want to go on and achieve all of these modules. So we can package them all up for you and provide you with a significant discount based on your commitment to attend all of that training with us over a period of time, and that typically is up to 2 years. So we're not shoehorning you into doing them all immediately. Potentially, if you're looking at doing them over a longer period of time, then we can help you with that. We also have a bundle for those people that want to do managing professional transition and the digital and IT strategy, to tick off both those qualifications, managing professional and strategic leader. So if those things are of interest, then drop me a message and I can get you the details of that. We've got some other upcoming virtual events. Just to say, first of all, we've already provided the Create, Deliver and Support and Drive Stakeholder Value webinars, which are available on our YouTube channel. You'll have a link to that in the email that I send across with a recording of today's session. This Friday, I'm hosting a half-day ITIL4 overview session. So again, this is a free event for you or your colleagues to connect onto. Free half-days training where we're going to introduce what ITIL4 is all about. It's kind of a cut-down version of the foundation course, really, but it helps just to sort of set the scene and provide the benefits of ITIL4, so you can start to look at, if you haven't done so already, whether this is something that's right for your organisation, or if you have, it might just be that you've got people in your organisation that don't need the full foundation training. An introduction will suffice for them. Next week, we've got the next of this Insight series of webinars where we're looking at Direct Plan and Improve. That's on Tuesday, the 23rd of March. Next Friday, we've got the same, but digital and IT strategy. And then just to pigeonhole a couple of workshops that that you might be interested in. One-day workshop, problem management in practice, on the 26th of March, and on the 23rd of April, managing major incidents. So one-day workshops. We do feel that these modules that I'm taking you through at the moment are of significant value. One perhaps slight criticism is they don't go into the practices in a great deal of detail, and that's why we've kind of introduced these one-day workshops to provide that additional guidance for our clients. Some of our popular business simulations that you should be aware of. We have an Agile service management simulation based around a mission to Mars, which seems very topical at the moment. It builds on ITIL4 principles to introduce things like value streams, visualizing work, managing end-to-end value creation, creating high-performing teams. We also still have our Apollo 13, which we've offered for a number of years now, but is adapted for ITIL4. So it talks about applying ITIL4 to traditional IT service management organizations. So we cover things like planning and managing a support service, designing, testing and improving core ITIL support processes like incident, problem, change, those things, as well as ongoing continual improvement. And just to say that these are traditional classroom workshops, but they both have now been adapted to business simulations that are available online. So with that particular in mind, we're looking at how we can address increasing business demand, looking to innovate but deliver on service level agreements. But a key thing with these things is further pressure from increased home working, and actually collaboration across teams and things is difficult, and these particular simulations help us with those things. So if these are of interest, drop me a line and I can send you more information on them. But that's me done. Well, next slide, I'll move on to the Q&A. Again, if you haven't done so already, I've just posted again there in the chat the feedback survey for you to give us a bit of feedback on today's session. There is an option on there that talks about whether you want to opt into our services, and just to say that today's session is an example of the type of thing that we push out through those marketing communications. So if you do want to hear about future events, then I strongly suggest that you opt in to receive those things. But that's it. I'm moving on to Q&A. So I'm just going to whiz back through the chat, have a look, see if I've picked up any questions that I have missed, give you an opportunity to post any new questions that you may have thought of as we've gone through this. Someone's asked, site reliability, is that deemed as incident avoidance? Yeah, perhaps it is. I mean, we're trying to be more proactive in the way that we do things. So if I introduced it as that we're looking at introducing software engineering into infrastructure, but yeah, I think avoiding incidents is a key part of that. I've answered the question about managing professional transition courses. Has the pass rates for the modules been high considering the virtual delivery? Good question, actually. I think it's, I would say that from what we've provided so far, the pass rate is as expected, regardless of the fact that we're delivering things virtually. I also will sort of caveat by saying that I think that the pass rate generally is expected to be higher for these advanced modules compared to the ITIL version 3 stuff, because I think that it's not quite as difficult. The Bloom's level of competency, if you like, is slightly lower. But yeah, we've not seen any real issue with virtual delivery. One thing that I would say is that the problem with virtual delivery is that people don't sit their exam immediately at the end of the course. You know, in a classroom, we would typically provide them with a paper-based exam on the final day of the course. Whereas now people are left to their own devices to go off and book their exam in their own time. And I would say that with the virtual deliveries, you're finding that those people that leave it too long are hindering their chances of actually successfully passing the exam. So that is one aspect that we've seen from it. Those who tend to maybe take a few days to really take on board the information that's been presented to them, and then sit their exam tend to be the ones that do best. Couple of you saying send out ITIL overview invites for Friday. Yeah, that's great. I'm more than happy to do that. Yeah, I'll just make sure that I include that link in the communication that I send to all of you, so that you've got that. So you should be able to pick that out. Lots of people thanking me, that you're all very, very welcome. Thank you all for coming in and supporting the event. It's always good to see, as I say, that some names that I know and new names as well. But that seems to be the end of the questions for now. So I'll take that point then to sign off. Thank you all again. Maybe some of you will come on to the overview on Friday, or possibly look at the sessions for next week, but I'm sure I'll catch up with you all very soon. Take care and all have a great day. Okay, bye now.